Good afternoon to the NDC Heartbeat program for another beautiful Sunday afternoon in Grenada. We'll be having yet another very interesting program lined up for you. We'll be having very shortly the Deputy Chairman of the COVID-19 Economic Support Secretariat, locally known as SES, or otherwise known as the Stimulus Fund Program. Thereafter, we'll be having Senator the Honorable Claudette Joseph, who is the Attorney General and Minister responsible for legal affairs. She'll be chatting with us on the issue of the missing computer, which created quite a buzz in the local media. So, coming on very shortly would be Senator the Honorable Quince Britton. He'll be chatting on the COVID SES program. So, we take a short break, give a review of last week's program, and also give you a snippet as to what went on in New York this weekend with the major ball event out there. Stay with us. Back in a moment.
Previously on The Heartbeat.
We are tapping into the schools. We anticipate collaborating with the various schools on island that we have to start there. You train a child to grow up in the way that they should go.
Yep.
And so we know about that African proverb, the children will lead. And so we want to start there at first. And we also want to take it to our most senior adults within our country to help them to start changing their patterns, knowing don't waste water, knowing how to dispose of their waste properly, knowing who to call to dispose of abandoned vehicles that no longer works, that is parked on the side of the roads. And so we are taking it small steps at a time. And I must underscore too as well, I'm a Catholic, and so there is a Seasons of Creation period that's going on currently. It starts at September 1st and it ends on October 4th. And so the Sisters of the Sorrowful Mother has bit us to it. And so over the past few weeks during that period and onwards to October 4th, they have engaged the schools from as young as the primary level, to help them understand environmental protection, being friendly citizens of the earth. And I always say I found this to be a unique collaborative way in terms of educating our people.
Welcome back to all our listeners and viewers. We welcome all those who are on the NDC Facebook Live. We encourage you to share the live, and those who are on WeFM, Vibes FM, and Spice Capital Radio, we welcome you to the Heartbeat today. We have on the line with us the Senator, the Honorable Quince Britton. And just to also let you know that we'll be doing a rebroadcast of the Prime Minister's address to the 77th session of the United Nations meeting in New York. We most likely will be taking this at about 12:30. So the two interviews this morning will be 10, 15 minutes each. So please share the live and share this information of the Prime Minister's rebroadcast to the United Nations yesterday, Saturday. Welcome, Senator Britton, to Heartbeat once again.
Thank you very much, Terry, and a pleasant good afternoon to your listeners and viewers of those that are live feed for me video. We had a bit of issues in St. Mark, whereby we had current, the electricity, there's no power in Victoria, the town of Victoria. So that makes it a bit challenging. That's why I have to join you via audio.
Oh, I see. Well, we're sorry to hear this, but of course, we're hearing you loud and clear. And how has it been for you after the elections, and what's happening in Victoria? I know you had some challenges with families, with fires and so forth. How is that settling down?
It has been very challenging, I should say, but it's something that I anticipated. I know exactly what it is that I signed up for. So, and my passion to always assist person. Unfortunately, we had a tragedy with a fire where 3 houses were completely destroyed. And as you can see from, we jumped right in to trying to help the families and try and get back on the feet. as soon as possible. Um, the government is committed to giving some necessary support to get the family back on their feet and so on. The business community and other stakeholders have been assisting in that regard as well. And so far, the effort has been very, very good, and we anticipate some more support. We also anticipate that before the end of the year, we will be able to complete those structures so the families and so on can be back to the state of normalcy.
Great. Well, good to hear that you're on top of that situation, and our condolences. Of course, we empathize with those who have lost their homes and the discomfort that that had brought upon the families in Victoria. But from all evidence, it looks as though that things are in place and assistance is being meted out to them.
Most definitely, sir. Also, we've been taking some steps to mitigate against other occurrences like this. For instance, over the past couple of weeks, we have conducted a fire training session in Victoria because we realized that that was one of the weaknesses when there is disaster strikes us like that like a fire. And the community came out in a large numbers during the time of the fire to assist, but not much persons had formal training as to the proper safety mechanism and so on to apply. So we took the initiative and we had some fire training, fire drills, and we will end that first aspect of the training this coming Wednesday, whereby the participants will be given a certificate and so on. So, and then it will be something ongoing where we would always do that refresher, to keep people get the skills, the practical skills sharpened as much as possible. So, in the event of a fire, we can respond and apply the necessary safety measures, to get to mitigate against further loss of lives and property.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's great. So happy to hear that you're on top of things, and the people of Victoria, they are receiving the kind of service and attention from the representative. Let's go on. You are the deputy chairman of the CES program, and the CES program is the COVID-19 Economic Support Secretariat, otherwise locally known as the Stimulus Fund Program. Tell us about it, and how can individuals access this fund, and where do they go from here?
Okay, just a little correction. I'm not the deputy chairman, but the deputy project coordinator.
Deputy project coordinator. Thank you for that.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So the Ministry of Finance had launched the third phase of the economic stimulus package 2.0 on the 1st of September, as we did in our media launch, where the Prime Minister and so on outlined the program. And the program is really geared towards micro, small, and medium enterprises. And it's basically to assist them, those who have been adversely affected by the COVID, they stand to benefit. Well, this time we enhance the program where you can benefit as capital support to the tune of up to $30,000. Mm-hmm. And once approval and so on is being given, then we will be paying the suppliers directly. So some people have the notion that, once they get $30,000 and they get $30,000 in cash. But it doesn't work that way, right? So it's open to all micro, small, and medium enterprises. You can apply. They normally would have the requirements for the program is that you must have a valid form of ID. Your business must be registered, alright, whether it's with the NIS as well as the typo building, that's the corporate intellectual property office. If you want to register and so on, and you have two reference letters from two prominent persons within your community who knows you. And we wouldn't want a situation whereby you in your house and your mother doing a reference letter for you and so is your sister. So you get other persons within the community, like a teacher, maybe a doctor, a lawyer, persons that knows you well because you're really doing some cross checking, making sure that what the person who they say you are is really they know that person very well. Um, Also, Terry, once we receive those applications, then we have our field officers, right, from the first office. We have our field officers coming out there to verify that bit of information to ensure that what it is that we're asking for, or what it is that we're requiring of for the program is really and truly what it is that we need. Right? So once they they do their report, then it goes further down the line for approval and so on.
Okay, now the program also caters for persons who are unemployed and wishing to set up a small business.
Yes, Terry. That's also another component of the program in which the government made an extension to one is temporary unemployment benefit as of August to December 31st, 2022. So and one of the requirements is that you must have a letter stating that you've been laid off by the company and so on, or wherever establishment you were working before. Once you have that letter, you attach it, and then every month the government gives an assistance. Once you will not get employed, and we do some verification with the NIS to ensure that you are not employed and you're not contributing to the NIS and so on. The government is committed to giving some support in that aspect, to kind of cushion the effect as much as possible. There's also another component to that program that the government did another extension, and we call it a horizontal expansion of the SHE program. So there are some persons who are written on the list SHE program that are support for education and empowerment development under the Ministry of Social Development. Is one of the social programs, social safety net programs. So the government, has been giving some support and so on in that regard over the past couple of months. The persons who are there waiting on the list to be placed on the seed program, the official seed list, the government had some support in that regard. So they made the extension up until December 2022.
All right. So
another thing, Terry, is that the government continues to give those type of support, and not necessarily because you want people to remain on those programs, but you should give them a hand up rather than just a hand out. Assisting as much as possible so that they can move to another level.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So just to make it abundantly clear, the program has different facets whereby persons who were unemployed as a result of COVID, they can produce evidence of such dismissal letters to the Secretariat, and they will get some form of compensation. But in addition to which, persons who are presently unemployed, who wish to set up a small business, they can also apply, including those who have existing small businesses and wishing to expand their services in these businesses. They can also equally apply.
Yes, sir.
Right. Great. We running out of time because we have another guest waiting here. Plus, we have the Prime Minister's address, which is about 30 minutes. So we have to manage time pretty tightly today. Is there any final closing comments you wish to make at this time on the program?
Terry. I'd just like to say, a heartfelt thanks and appreciation to the entire constituency of Irma. They have been very supportive thus far, and we look forward in collaborating to do more things there. Time doesn't permit me to go into some details, but just let me We starting back our traditional breakfast that we want to do monthly. So the next breakfast will be on the 8th of October. We'll be doing some promotion and so for that. And Terry, we have an activity coming up on the 23rd of October. It's a nation builders ceremony that we'll be having, and it will take different aspects of it. It will involve food, music, culture, and the list go on.
All right. Well, we can chat about that next week.
Would be a component of that, and we'll have some speeches and so on. So it's all part of the political education that our political leaders speak, oftentimes speak about. So maybe as the time comes closer, myself as well as the CRO from the constituency branch will be joining in.
Yes.
Full details as to what that entails.
Very
so
good.
Once again, I'd just like to say thank you to all the listeners and viewers who's out there. I'm thankful for the support. Continue to pray for us, most of all. And it's a process. I urge you to be patient and to see how we can work together to finally move Grenada forward as a campaign. And we are making our mark in Finland.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed, Senator Britton. Most appreciated. Next week we can follow up on with your PRO. We, at this time, need to take a quick break. Welcome back to the NDC Heartbeat program. We do apologize for this little break there, a little technical glitch, I would say. We have now with us Senator the Honorable Claudette Joseph, who is the Attorney General and also Minister responsible for legal affairs. Before we get into this interview, just to remind you that the rebroadcast of the Prime Minister's address to the United Nations 77th session in New York will start at approximately 12:35 latest. We ask for the indulgence of the radio stations who are covering this program. If we go over a little bit, we ask for your understanding. But those who are on Facebook, please, you will continue to see the entire speech by the Prime Minister. So now let me say pleasant good afternoon to Senator Joseph.
Good afternoon to you, Terry, and to everyone listening to the program on all the various platforms.
Wonderful. Well, it has been quite a media buzz this week with this missing computer at the legal affairs or at the courthouse, which has caused quite a panic. And unfortunately, an individual who had indicated that he was guilty of a crime walked free. How do you share with the public what is really happening and what has caused this?
Yes, let me just clarify for the benefit of the public. As I understand it, the issue is not about a missing computer. The issue is the failure of the state, particularly the previous administration, to adequately provide for the judiciary and, in fact, all of the offices connected with the legal system.
Right.
What happens when matters are heard? They are recorded electronically. Now, this occurred back in 2015.
Wow.
2015. So this is an old problem. The matter was recorded, and as happened back then, the system itself was faulty. So chunks of the proceedings would have been left out. And so in preparing the transcript, now when a person appeals, I have to speak quickly.
Yeah.
When a person appeals a matter, part of the documents that must go to the Court of Appeal is a transcript or a copy of the entire proceedings in the court below. And that is why the proceedings are recorded.
Right.
Well, that's one of the reasons why the proceedings are recorded. The entire transcript could not be prepared in this case because the recording apparatus then was faulty. And so some of it was left out. And the hope was that a version of it might be on a computer that was used in the court,
Right.
right? So just a little piece that's missing, which contains the judge's summation and the sentencing part of the proceedings.
Right.
That little piece is missing. Everything else was transcribed.
Oh.
The computer where it was hoped the gaps could be filled from. That is a computer that can't be found as far as I understand it. So it is not like it was
Everything.
reported. It's not like
Right.
there's this missing computer and
Yeah,
there's some.
that's how it came out in the media.
No, it's nothing
Yeah.
like that. Some big conspiracy and the whole thing missing and a computer got stolen and whatnot.
Right.
Granted, there was recently a break-in at the registry. That was a few weeks ago, where 2 computers were stolen.
Wow.
I want to say to the public, one, security in the registry has been beefed up significantly. So you're going to get caught if you try breaking into the registry or any government office for that matter. 2, it makes no sense trying to steal computers and so from the court because since then, since the system that operated in 2015 when this case was actually heard is no longer in use.
Right.
And all proceedings are properly backed up now. Right? So it makes no use.
Okay.
Like the persons who stole the 2 computers recently, there's no use. The computers would be no use to you because you wouldn't get any information on it. And the information is otherwise secured. Right? So I just want to clarify to the public that there was some degree of exaggeration as to what exactly was missing,
Right.
and that has caused a whole lot of disquiet.
Yes, indeed.
My information is this is not no, and this information that can't be found. This happened since, as I said, the case was heard in 2015. The appeal was filed in the early part of 2016, and it is since then.
Wow.
They've been trying to put the transcript together. So this is an old.
But
It's an old issue.
speak to what has been introduced, what has been done in 2015 to help mitigate these
Well,
problems.
not just 2015, somewhere around 2016, 2017. The system now, there's a cloud backup. And in fact, this is throughout the entire government system.
Okay.
So there's a cloud storage facility now. So things are not stored on a computer itself.
Okay.
It's backed up in the cloud, basically. But I want to say that in relation to the situation with the provisions for the administration of justice, I started off by saying the system has been severely neglected over the years. And our job now is to remedy that. And that is what we are prepared to do, working with all the other arms of government, all the other offices of the government, and stakeholders, including the Grenada Bar Association. Now, I can share with the public what I met at the registry. It's not good. In fact, in my view, it's terrible. Not just the registry, but the judicial system. And I had an idea because I was one of the active members of the bar advocating on these matters over a long period of time. I'm fully aware that the Bar Association in 2019 sued the government for its failure to adequately provide for the court system and the supporting apparatus around the court. And that matter is still before the court, right? The The staffing is an issue. There aren't enough staff at principally at the Supreme Court Registry. Particularly the unit that deals with producing transcripts of proceedings. That unit, it's called a unit, but basically is one staff member. And she's the only person qualified to certify transcripts in the system. So, every single case that is heard and that goes on appeal, this one staff. So no matter if she works 24 hours a day around the clock, right? Doesn't matter how much she works. There's no way it can happen. So we are actively pursuing bringing on additional staff and getting some qualified transcriptionists to assist with the backlog, because there is actually a backlog of trial transcripts, and there is the risk, I must share with the public, of other people being affected similarly to Mr. Clark, because there are whole lots of transcripts backed up from 2015 come forward to be done. So we are working on these matters, and we are working to strengthen the judiciary by bringing on the staff, by digitizing and upgrading matters, by making for better facilities, because, again, the physical accommodation for the court is very inefficient or insufficient. So we're doing this one step at a time. We've beefed up the security. We've gotten proper library facilities for all the lawyers in the system. We've added some staff, but we still have more to do. And we are now ensuring that going forward, we wouldn't have issues with transcripts and so on. Right?
So this is a major transformation of our court system.
Absolutely. We have no choice.
Wow.
We have no choice. Attention has not been paid to the judicial system over the years. And we as a government of transformation.
You got to fix it.
Whether we were transformational government or not, we had to transform the judiciary.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
just to assure the public that we are on top of these issues, and we are going to take all steps necessary to improve the system and to remedy the deficiencies.
Very good.
I will have to come back because I know there's a lot more.
Yes, definitely so indeed. Let me give you a 30 seconds wrap up on if you have any final closing remarks you wish to make on this matter.
Just to say the Grenadian people, we are here to serve you. We are building a close and collaborative relationship with all the other arms of the state, the police, the cabinet of ministers, the Bar Association, the Supreme Court Registry staff, and we're gonna get this right.
Great.
We're gonna get it right. And just special good afternoon to all of the people of the constituency of the town of St. George. We are hosting our usual breakfast next Saturday. And on October 25th, we will be hosting a fun day at the Old Trafford playing field in Tantine.
Great.
So you'll be hearing more about these activities. And look out for me. I continue to come through the constituency to interact with you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much indeed. This was Senator the Honorable Claudette Joseph. She's the Attorney General and Minister responsible for legal affairs. We'll be back in a moment as we take the Prime Minister's speech to the 77th session of the United Nations. Back in a moment. Welcome back to all our viewers and listeners of the NDC Heartbeat this beautiful Sunday afternoon. We'll be taking very shortly the Prime Minister's address to the 77th session of the United Nations meeting held in New York on Saturday. Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell addressed the United Nations just about 10:30 Saturday morning. So those of you who missed it, it will now be rebroadcasted to you. And in case it goes over on the radio stations because of time consideration, you can always log on to the NDC Facebook page where it will be. Thank you very much and do have a great Sunday afternoon. We now present to you the Prime Minister of Grenada at the United Nations.
I have great pleasure in welcoming His Excellency Deacon Mitchell, Prime Minister and Minister for Finance and Minister for National Security, Home Affairs, Public Administration, Information and Disaster Management of Grenada. I invite him to address the Assembly.
His Excellency Kaba Kurosi, President of this 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General, Excellencies, Heads of State and of Government, Heads of Delegation, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. President, please accept my warmest greetings and congratulations on your election to the presidency of this 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly. I commit my delegation's full support and cooperation in the fulfillment of your important duties. I also commend your predecessor, His Excellency Abdullah Shahid of the Maldives, for his able guidance of the last session of the General Assembly. Mr. President, I'm extremely honored to speak at this important global forum for the first time on behalf of the government and people of Grenada. Exactly 3 months ago today, the people of Grenada exercised their democratic right and voted for transformation in free and fair elections and a solid mandate at the polls. The Grenadian people placed their confidence in me to lead our country for the next 5 years. Mr. President, today I bring my transformational agenda to the United Nations General Assembly because although we are an island state, our world does not exist in isolation. Successful and sustainable transformation in Grenada is inevitably tethered to the sustainable forward movement of the global community. Mr. President, this noble institution is nearing its 80-year anniversary, a significant milestone that is worthy of distinct recognition. As my own country also draws near to a noteworthy milestone, that of 50 years as an independent state, it is an appropriate time to renew our commitment to the principles of the United Nations Charter and to international law. It is also a fitting time to review the achievements of the past decades and to proffer solutions to the challenges that have stymied progress. Mr. President, the COVID-19 pandemic brought our world to a standstill without prejudice for the size and the economic might of nations. For a time, this disease was the great equalizer and forced us all to reevaluate our priorities and our approach to working together. Grenada notes with relief news from the World Health Organization that we might be finally entering the end phase of the pandemic. While we welcome the return to some semblance of normal, it is my sincere hope that the lessons learned from the pandemic will remain and we will not return to business as usual. Mr. President, the monumental challenges posed by the pandemic were unprecedented and seemingly insurmountable. Amid this worldwide disaster, however, our global community rallied and demonstrated what is possible when we resolve to work together towards a common goal. The pandemic taught us all the value of international cooperation, the timely exchange of information, and the sharing of resources critical to avoiding and mitigating similar global occurrences. Mr. President, it is imperative that the matter of climate change be escalated to this level of urgency amongst our community of nations. The devastating effects of global warming can already be felt all over the world, with higher temperatures worsening many types of disasters, including storms, heat waves, floods, and droughts. Our planet is undoubtedly in crisis, but as the ancient Chinese proverb reminds us, crisis is opportunity riding a dangerous wind. This window of opportunity is quickly closing, however, and we no longer have the luxury to kick these issues down the road. We are now faced with the reality that tomorrow is today. Mr. President, we have tinkered long enough and must now accept that solutions to the problems we face may not be found in this grand hall or in the highest echelons of global climate discussions, but rather with the people, especially our young people, who stand to lose the most from the inaction of our current leaders. Mr. President, approximately 60% of the world's population is under 35 years old. In my own country, 50% of the current population is between 18 and 35 years of age. Young people are therefore critical to the success of sustainable development policies and must play a central role in the implementation of the targets set by the 2030 Agenda. Mr. President, I call on all young people to take action. It is not yet too late to do what is necessary to safeguard our planet for future generations. But the time for action is now. The reality is, the leaders of today will not be around to feel the consequences of their decisions. It is therefore up to our youth to lead the charge for the future they want to see. To all young people, I challenge you today to choose to be agents of change over victims of climate change. It can start with small actions that cause ripple effects throughout your families and friend circles, your communities, and eventually the wider world. Mr. President, it was not that long ago that I too was a young lawyer seeking to evoke positive change in my community through small actions. I knew that I could no longer sit on the sidelines and wait for the leaders of the day to solve challenges that have plagued Grenadian society for well over a decade. I had to become the change. In October 2021, I made the decision to enter political life, and shortly after was elected political leader of the National Democratic Congress. Only 8 months later, Mr. President, I led the party to victory, winning 9 of the 15 seats. My presence here today is testament that we can change and we can create the change that we would like to see. But it will only materialize if we step forward and accept the call to be the leaders of today. Mr. President, as leaders, the onus is also on us to create spaces where young people feel empowered to propose innovative solutions to the challenges we collectively face. This is a priority of my administration and has been backed by gender-forward, pro-youth policies and purposeful action. The appointment of the Honourable Kireen James as Minister for Climate Resilience, the Environment and Renewable Energy at 23 years old is a milestone for my country and the Caribbean region, as the Honourable James is the youngest minister in the Caribbean. Mr. President, confronting the climate crisis will require a complete transformation of our mindset and behaviours, but also, and importantly, the transformation of our energy sources, economic models, and land stewardship. This is a unique opportunity to come together, welcome innovative ideas, and tackle the problems we have struggled with for generations. Our goal as responsible global citizens should be to leave the planet as good or better than we found it. This plea is not without urgency. Mr. President, as the leader of a Caribbean small island developing state, I am all too familiar with the devastating effects of climate change and the stark reality that we may not have a country to pass on to future generations in the face of increasingly strengthened hurricanes and sea level rise. The small island states of the Caribbean are already experiencing significant adverse effects due to climate change. With each hurricane season, and we are in the hurricane season currently, that now brings increased and more powerful storms, we watch and we wait with bated breath and a silent prayer in the hope that this year it will not be our turn. In 2004, it was Grenada's turn with Hurricane Ivan. In the matter of a mere 8 hours, we lost 34 souls, and the Category 3 storm destroyed 80% of our housing stock and decimated our economic and fiscal bases, with damage surpassing 200% of our gross domestic product. 10 months later, in 2005, it was Grenada's turn again with Hurricane Emily. In recent years, we have watched with horror as our brothers and sisters across the Caribbean experience their turn. Most notably, Hurricane Irma in 2017, which left the island of Barbuda nearly uninhabitable and wrought significant havoc on over 10 other Caribbean island states, including the British Virgin Islands, which lost approximately 85% of its housing stock. Only 2 weeks later, Hurricane Maria threatened cruelly to exacerbate the wounds freshly inflicted by Irma. Mr. President, the global community would remember the destruction visited on Dominica by the said Hurricane Maria, which left 31 people dead, 37 missing, and an estimated $930 million in damages. Mr. President, I can continue in this vein, highlighting the devastating consequences that Caribbean islands suffer due to the warming climate, including the harmful effects on our rich biodiversity and underwater resources. We are truly on the front lines, and we know it all too well, the ease with which one hurricane can wipe out decades of progress. As I stand here this morning, several Caribbean islands are reeling from the wrath of Hurricane Fiona. This is the reality we face, Mr. President, and why it is urgent that we act. Mr. President, given the focus of my address here this morning, it is evident that climate change is inimical to Grenada's transformational agenda. We continue to insist on a clear roadmap at the global level for ambitious climate action to ensure that global average temperatures remain below the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold. As we seek to bolster climate resilience in our island home, I reiterate the call for the urgent scaling up of climate finance for adaptation and the removal of challenges that developing nations face to access climate financing. Additionally, my government calls for increased technology development and capacity building, especially for young people. Mr. President, we are encouraged and indeed proud that a son of the soil has been given the responsibility to manage global climate action. The appointment of Simon Steele as Executive Secretary of the United Nations Climate Change Secretariat sends a clear message of the importance of island voices in the fight against climate change. We are optimistic that we will achieve the mandates of the Climate Convention and its protocols, as well as the Agenda for Sustainable Development. Mr. President, the government of Grenada is steadfast in its commitment to creating paths towards sustainability and promoting diversity. Evidence of our resolve can be found in the first ever long-term National Sustainable Development Plan 2020-2035, which is in alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals, which is the anchor for the country's development agenda and the priorities for the next 15-year period. In this regard, the government of Grenada was pleased to be one of the 45 countries that presented voluntary national reviews of the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development during the recently held high-level political forum for sustainable development. Mr. President, our country-led review of progress towards the implementation of the 17 SDGs of the 2030 Agenda comes at a critical juncture in our collective efforts aimed at recovering from the extraordinary socio-economic crisis created by COVID-19. Mr. President, for Grenada, the pandemic exposed critical structural weaknesses and resource deficiencies in our healthcare system. Managing the high incidence of non-communicable diseases, therefore, is an urgent priority, and so too is addressing the mental health of our citizenry. In addition, Mr. President, the economic fallout from the worldwide closure of borders and stagnation of tourism, a key economic driver, exacerbated already elevated levels of unemployment and poverty. My government intends to mitigate such dire circumstances in the future by diversifying our economy and developing a robust ICT and digital economy. Trends such as converging technologies and the digitization of production are rapidly transforming work and life, and they must be factored into training and development opportunities for our young people. Mr. President, we understand that to adequately equip our young people for the future, inclusive and equitable quality education is fundamental. To this end, my government has taken the necessary steps to ensure the framework for free universal education up to the community college level, and is committed to providing second chance opportunities to all youth who did not complete a primary, secondary, or tertiary education. Additionally, we intend to actively seek out opportunities for further studies in digital and creative fields to support our emerging creative and digital economies. Mr. President, the answers, once again, will lie with our young people and their invaluable contributions to the future of the labor force. My government will foster an environment where youth have access to and the support needed to thrive. In particular, we intend to provide incentives to young entrepreneurs, upgrade our agricultural production systems, and bolster our export capacity. Grenada will act deliberately to attract the attention and support of the international community and the favor of friendly nations as we seek to improve the standard of living of all citizens through the exploration of new frontiers of economic and social development. Mr. President, as we emerge from the crisis of the COVID-19 pandemic and optimistically prepare to transform our economy, we cannot ignore the new crisis in the East due to current geopolitical tensions and conflicts, which has devastating and disruptive consequences for energy and food security. Mr. President, Russia's war with Ukraine has already threatened international peace and stability and induced hardships upon nations unconnected with the conflict. Grenada associates itself with the call of many for Russia to relent its war efforts in Ukraine and for the parties to negotiate a peaceful settlement of the conflict. Mr. President, mindful that peace is a supreme asset and a legitimate aspiration of all peoples, Grenada renews its firm call for the Caribbean to remain a zone of peace. We also advocate for the economic, social, and environmental development of all Caribbean states. In this regard, Grenada is satisfied that the removal of the US-imposed economic, commercial, and financial blockade against Cuba will facilitate economic and social change there. Additionally, we call for Cuba to be removed from the US State Department's list of countries that are co-sponsors of terrorism. Mr. President, in the same way, we lament that more has not been done for our brothers and sisters in Haiti, a country classified as one of the poorest amongst us. The Caribbean Community, CARICOM, continues to pursue various initiatives to assist Haiti. However, we believe that more productive engagements must be undertaken with all stakeholders to help achieve political stability, peace, and economic progress in Haiti. Mr. President, Grenada also reiterates its support for the ongoing judicial process at the International Court of Justice aimed at bringing a definitive end to the long-standing Guyana-Venezuela border dispute, and we reaffirm our unwavering support for the territorial integrity of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Mr. President, we further remain resolute in our call for an end to the imposition of unilateral coercive measures against the Republic of Venezuela, contrary to the rules and principles of international law and the Charter of the United Nations. Mr. President, the net effect of the recent and ongoing crises continues to seriously dislodge the world economy and, in turn, the ability of countries to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. The adverse impacts on production, employment, and poverty are growing, while at the same time jeopardizing fiscal management in many countries. The government of Grenada is firm in its determination to achieve the full implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. We call, however, for the increased inclusion of youth voices as we seek to chart the future of our planet. We further note that if small island states are to eliminate poverty and attain sustainable levels of development, the vulnerability criteria now applicable to all countries must be comprehensively reviewed as a matter of urgency. The consequence of upper middle income status afforded Grenada and many other small states, without consideration to our specific vulnerabilities, continues to hinder our ability to access concessionary and grant financing. We continue to call for a new multi-vulnerable index, which will eliminate the threat to our economic development and security. And we encourage the submission of additional proposals that seek to address similar challenges that prevent our countries from moving forward on equal footing. Mr. President, the United Nations system over the last 77 years has contributed immensely to humanity. It is now time to consider strategic transformation if we are to achieve the goals set out in the 2030 Agenda and safeguard our planet for future generations. Thank you.